All right. Welcome to Astrology Hub TV, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Amanda Walsh, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Astrology Hub. And Astrology Hub TV is a weekly show dedicated to helping you explore your connection to the cosmos and explore how cultivating this connection can help you live a more empowered, fulfilling, and vibrant life. We're here live every Thursday at 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. If you would like to receive an alert via Facebook every time that we're live, you can do so by signing up for live alerts. The link to do that is in the chat and also in the description above this video. And we are going to be getting started with our special guest, Kathy Biehl. But before we do that, I just wanted to let you know about a special gift that we have available to you for download right now. I don't know if you know this already, but this summer we are going to be having an unprecedented event. We're going to have 6 planets in retrograde at the same time. This has only happened twice in the last 100 years, and it's a very powerful opportunity for you to review and repair your life. So I know a lot of times we hear the word retrogrades and we go, and we get afraid, but I just want to encourage you to download this guide because we've actually had feedback from the audience, from people saying, you know what, I'm actually looking forward to it now. I know how to work with it. So I want that to be you as well. So please go ahead and take advantage of that free gift. The link to do so is in the chat and also in the description of this video. All right, so today we're talking about celestial clockwork, how the transiting planets directly correlate to world events and to our daily lives. And so what we do when we pay attention to these transits is that we shed light on what's happening on our planets, and we can use these transits to forecast what's to come. So Kathy Biehl is going to show us how. In this talk with professional astrologer and creator of Empowerment Unlimited, Kathy Biehl will teach you how tracking planetary transits can empower you to forecast life events, where to look for transits and how to track them, specific transits to look for in your natal chart, and what they could mean for you. So today's episode is for you if you're curious about outer planetary aspects and transits, if you're interested in tracking how the movement of the sky relates to real world events, and if you want to be able to accurately forecast events in your own daily life. All right, so a little bit more about our special guest today, Kathy Biehl. She is a professional astrologer who has lived and worked on the bridge between intuition and the rational mind for more than 30 years. Her forecasts and consultations draw on her diverse life experience as an attorney, a small business owner, a performing artist, and a writer. She has been translating astrology for the mainstream since her high school newspaper days and is known for her humor and penchant for pop culture references. Her writing appears at Astrology Hub with us and Ohm Times, as well as her site empowermentunlimited.net. And she was a lunar cycle guide for our inner circle last year. She's also the author of our new and full moon roundup articles. So if you like those articles, you are going to love listening to Kathy today. All right, so question for all of you out there, would love to hear from you. How many of you are interested in transits or know much about them already? So would love to know if you're interested in learning more about them and if you feel like you have a handle on them or if it's something that you'd like to understand more deeply. I'll be looking at your responses here in just a sec. But Kathy, let's start into our talk. I'd love to begin with a question about you and how you got into astrology.
Oh, well, I was a kid who wanted magic to be real. And it developed into my following every kind of occult book, that's what we called it then, that I could get my hands on. And there are a lot of things that interested me, but astrology is where I landed. I found it from books. I was given the Astrologer's Handbook as my graduation present from high school by my assistant on the newspaper, where I had a column. And I just started, I learned a lot about it. And when I left working for any kind of normal job, when I left a regular law firm job and started working on my own, I went to astrology school in the evenings, and it was a blast. And I've just been learning and learning and learning since then. And then I always, something happens and I look up a chart like, okay, what caused this? What's the correlation? How can I see what's going on here? And I think my first mainstream non-high school article about astrology was Why This Year Has Been So Weird. I believe that was 1987. And I think we could pretty much use that title every year since. So
Why this year has been so weird. I like that. Okay, so Kathy, your background as a professional in general is very diverse. We've talked about a law firm and small business owner, and I know that you're in off-Broadway shows. How does that diverse background influence the way that you practice astrology?
Well, pretty much anything anybody brings to me as a client, I've heard it, I've seen it, I've known someone who's gone through it. And more than that, I just know an awful lot of really diverse things about how the world works and what really happens. And I would say that the business background and the fact that I was a business lawyer and still sometimes am, has been enormously helpful because I can see the real world ramifications of everything that's happening. And it's part of my basic job as a translator. I keep using that. I can put stuff into terms that other people can actually use it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very good at doing that, making it real and
Thank you.
relevant. So what's one of the things that you're the most passionate about in astrology today?
This is something I've been doing for the last few years, but keep in mind, I'm finding stuff all the time that really catches fire. I'm always learning. But in about 2012, I started following a very particular, a very specific, monumental aspect that happened 7 times between 2012 and 2015. And I just started following, and I was writing I was insane enough to be doing a daily horoscope column at that point. And I just decided for grins to see what happened every time the moon made a really hard aspect to the 2 planets that were involved. And I just started writing my forecasts completely from that through line, and they became frighteningly accurate. And I thought, oh, this is fun. So then I started watching how it was happening in my own life and what was going on. And to be honest, there was a relationship that was sort of unfolding at that time. So every time there was a gear shift movement in it, I would run a chart and that particular aspect would be involved somehow. And so the words I always come back and use for it is celestial clockwork. When you follow a specific thing that's happening, there are 2 ways you can do this. If it's a long enough aspect or something that's happening enough, you can watch for every time that it's occurring, or you can just notice what area of the zodiac got energized by the aspect and watch for when something else is going to hit it. And you'll have an idea of what will be happening, but in terms of predicting a specific event, good luck. That's not so, because there's irony is the overriding deity of the universe. So whatever you think it's going to be, it's going to play out slightly differently. But nonetheless, with this one particular aspect that I mentioned, there was something that got really heightened with it and shoved it forward. And I've talked about this on Astrology Hub broadcasts before, in December of 2013. So I became obsessed with, okay, when this gets hit, what happens? And something monumental that connects back to what happened in my life in December of 2013 happens every single time something comes around and recreates that energy. And I marvel at it. This is incredible. So this is what I use in my forecasting a lot now.
This is what we're talking about today, the celestial clockwork. Okay.
Yeah. And you actually look at it as this big machine with gears. And different types of influences move the gears in different ways.
Okay. So to start with transits, where do we look? Let's just start with that conversation. Where do we look and how do we track them?
Transits are the moving planetary positions. Your birth chart is basically a snapshot of the sky when you were born. So your birth shot is a collection of transits frozen in place. So what you can do to see what's happening now, if you can read glyphs, the little symbols, astro.com, Astrodienst, which is a Swiss company, has them on the page every single day. If you just go to astro.com, they've got what the current planetary positions are. If you get a little handheld book, Jim Maynard puts one out that's just a tiny pocket calendar. You can look it up in that. Dell Magazine, Dell Horoscope has an ephemeris in the back. That's a little tricky, but there are ways you can find online where something is at any given time. You can find out what the planetary positions are. Now, this will probably freak out people who go, I don't even know what my chart is. But if you go to astro.com and you have, with a free account, you can run your chart. And one of the options is to put the current transits in with it. So you can see where things are. That's a simple way to do it. There we go, solved.
Okay. How do we use these transits to forecast events?
Well, it helps to have a bit of an understanding of what different planetary energies do. And if there's an outer planet aspect going on, it tends to be talked about a lot in the astrological community. So if you keep your ear to the ground on Facebook or reading things on the web, you can kind of pick it up. Like last year, there was a lot of talk about the eclipses because the one that happened, the total eclipse in the solar eclipse in the summer, activated so much for the US. So that's one way you can kind of pick up stuff. I would encourage, well, we'll get to this when we have homework at the end. Basically, if Mars is coming into an aspect with something in your chart, there's going to be something activating, kind of pushing you forward. If Saturn, you can just play with the keywords. And if you go to the encyclopedia beyond the horoscope, right? Is that what it's called? At Astrology Hub, you can look at Donna Woodwell's wonderful, easy to understand articles on all of the planets. And when you see that one of them is doing something in your chart, if it's contacting one of your something in your chart, you can get an idea of what it's like. Saturn's, I call him the planet of adulting. I think Donna calls it that too. It's the ultimate party pooper. So if Saturn is coming in on something, it's big girl, big boy panty time. You got to, man up, pay attention, act responsibly. So it's really easy. Actually, a simple way to do it is to look at those little articles if you don't know much about astrology, and you can kind of come up with some keywords, some adjectives or some nouns, some things they tend to mean, and then just notice. It's easiest to look for the conjunctions, which is when a planet is in the same place as another planet. So you might want to right now look at what's going on with Saturn and Capricorn. Where is that in your chart? Where are you called upon to become a little more responsible? That's actually a really easy one. And then there's another one to watch starting next week, but we'll get to that. That's part of the homework. Huh? You want me to go ahead and talk about it?
Well,
I don't know what your questions are, so you decide.
Well, I mean, you basically covered this too. I mean, how can people relate transits to their own natal charts? I mean, we've talked about that.
Well, there are levels of complexity you can add to this, but if you just see that there's some kind of contact going on, even if you don't quite understand what the geometric angle is, what the aspect is, but you just see there's some kind of conversation going on between a planet and something in your chart, that's enough to start with. If you want to actually learn what the aspects are and stuff, I do know that there are articles about that. So start with the conjunction. Start with when a planet is in the same place as something in your chart. And you might notice that sometimes a new moon or a full moon seems to be really close to your sun or your moon. That's a good place to start. That would mean that there's something very important, very personally activating going on with that. The full moon bringing something to a culmination, the new moon starting something.
Very Very good. Okay, that's helpful and simple and clear.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who want to check out that Beyond the Horoscope series that Kathy was talking about, Stephanie, our A-Team Angel, has put that in the chat. So the link to download, we have an amazing resource that will help you understand the planets, the signs. So check that out. Okay, Kathy. So let's talk about what's happening next week. We have a big planetary adjustment happening.
A big planetary shift, and you will hear a lot about this. Uranus, which is one of the two planets I started tracking in 2012. Uranus, I call the cosmic change agent of unpredictable change. It's very electric, awakening, rebel, unconventional energy. It's an influence that makes you look at things differently than it's been. For 8 years, Uranus has been moving through the sign of Aries, and it's like moving into maximum impulsive, self-actualizing, individuating mode. And it's making a bunch of aspects this weekend before it leaves. So if it's felt like life has been like one case of whiplash after another, it will be even more so over the weekend. And then what's happening on Tuesday is Uranus is changing signs. All that electric, uncontrollable, chaotic energy is moving into Taurus, the first earth sign. Taurus likes the here and now. Taurus is very much in the body, very attuned to the sensuality of physical existence. I have a humorous field guide to astrological types, and I mentioned in it that if a Taurus is getting disrupted, if Taurus is bothering you in a meeting, shove food in front of it, bread will do. So there's an energy here of just like really enjoying slow, steady fabrics that feel nice. There's fixation on food, maybe pleasant music, just quiet time. So this really electric energy is going to go into Earth. I would be surprised if anybody who is watching this has experienced this before. The last time Uranus was in Taurus was the very end of the 1930s to the very beginning of the 1940s. So like I think it's 36 to 37 or so to about 41 or thereabouts. Anyway, and this happens on the Taurus new moon on Monday. So we have this incredible gear shift. It could bring a lot of innovation, but it's also an outgrowth. It's the next stage from all the upheaval that we have been through, because now all this fiery energy hits Earth and you can do something with it. You can make something manifest that has been brewing in you. And this is going to happen at 0 degrees Taurus. So if you are, if you're a Taurus of any type, you're going to feel this. But if you are a Taurus at the very beginning of Taurus, if you are a Leo at the very beginning of Leo, if you're a Scorpio at the very beginning of Scorpio, or an Aquarius at the very beginning of Aquarius, you're going to feel this probably more strongly than other people, although this is going to hit everyone. Really dramatic stuff will happen. All right. Now, what makes this, the image I'm using for this these days is the cyclone from The Wizard of Oz getting really, really crazy and then suddenly, blam, landing on the ground, and Dorothy opening the door of the farmhouse and stepping outside into Technicolor and into a land that is unlike anything she's ever seen before, and saying, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And then the Munchkins showing up, unlike anything she's seen before, and her interacting with them. So that's going to be an analogy in some way for things that happen next week. We're going to be landing in something that's absolutely different from what we've been through. But that's not all. On the way out of, so as Uranus is making this gear shift, it's going to be in an incredibly dynamic aspect with Mars, the planet of push, And this aspect also has a push element to it. So there's going to be some kind of massive kickoff, Big Bang, or the thrusters on a spacecraft trying to come back into the Earth's orbit, or the cyclone getting really, 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 really whipped up before it hits the ground. And as soon as these guys, and then both of the planets change signs. Mars goes into Aquarius, which Uranus rules in the modern tradition. So they're going to have a bit of a relationship there. Mars rules Aries, where Uranus has been. So they're going to switch who's in charge. Suddenly Mars is in charge. And they're going to have the same headbutting attack on Wednesday. Same thing again, but with different clothes on, different ways of being. So there's this gigantic shift coming next week. It's going to free us and open us up to things that we weren't previously able to do. And there's no way you can sleep through it, because there are giant cosmic hands going shove on the way out the door, and then, hey, get up, shove once it lands. And the reason I'm going into this so much is that everybody can follow this. Whether you know anything, whether you understand your chart, whether you know how to read a chart, whether you are a Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, doesn't matter. You can follow what happens to this area of the sky that is going to be so wildly activated next week. And because both of those guys are going to go back over that territory, and that is the clockwork. When Mars moves across something, it's a timer. Things happen. When Mars goes across a point that has been sensitized, he makes things happen. So and Uranus just, like hits you on the side of the head, makes you look at it differently, blows things up, delivers epiphanies. Okay, lightning bolts to make you go, whoa, aha, I got it. So Mars hits this point first a bunch of times, and then Uranus hits this point next a bunch of times. And I do have those dates.
You're going to tell us those dates.
Yes.
Awesome. I have to say, with a volcano next door brewing and words like explosive and, it's kind of like, oh, wow, I should probably have some plans in place for the unknown. And I guess it's true for all of us, on some level. There's only so much we can do, but sometimes having plans, especially for a Capricorn, makes me feel better. So maybe just have some plans for unexpected events, and we'll see what's going to happen. It's really, as you say, electrifying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's look at the dates. What dates are we paying attention to? So obviously, okay, let me next Tuesday, Wednesday is sort of like the kickoff point for this, right?
Yes. You see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I wish I could make it bigger, but it's just not happening. So, okay. So Mars is squaring Uranus at the very end of Capricorn, and that should say 29 Aries. And we're in like a simulated Mercury retrograde right now, because Uranus and Mercury are traveling together. So I will get that corrected and get a slide that can be used. So on Tuesday, they have this push off energy, and then they both change signs. And by Wednesday, they have this exact chest bump. I don't know, get up off the ground. Don't be, whatever happens, something's going to be motivating us to get moving and to explore it. So the first thing that happens is that Mars, who is a timer, when Mars gets involved, things happen, is going to go back over these degrees during his retrograde this summer. So, and it'll be building for a period of time, but the days that are exact, the days that the gear shift happens again, are middle of August and middle of September. So take note of what new, unconventional, liberating, surprising breakthroughs, developments, changes, whatever, happen in your life midweek, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And there will be something that will be on the 11th and 12th, it could have a bit of a do-over aspect to it because that'll be in the middle of Mars's retrograde. And then on September 11th and 12th, it's a very definitely moving forward on it. And then Uranus has a hard aspect, as in something's got to move to these same degrees early in November and then early in March of next year. So the first round is something gets activated. And when Uranus goes over those degrees, there will be a connection to whatever happens next week, a connection to whatever moves into a different direction or gets clarified or gets pushed forward or reworked, middle of August, middle of September, and then early November, early March. Something about it could change. There could be a breakthrough that makes something different happen, or that gets rid of a barrier or an obstacle, or changes course or tweaks it somehow, or maybe even just your thinking about it undergoes some kind of change. So you can actually see something big happens next week, and then the clock goes chunk middle of August, and it goes chunk middle of September, and the gear work moves again in November, the gear work moves again in March. So there'll be something connecting all of those dates. Wow. And it will be a storyline. So whatever you see that's new, and whatever the big development is for you next week, you will see in August and September. You have the opportunity first to revisit it and rework it a little bit, or maybe pick up a puzzle piece that wasn't put in place quite right, and then move forward on it. And then the same scenario as adjusted in November and in March. Maybe we'll think about it differently. Something will shift, something will break open, something will break through. And then it starts blossoming from that once Uranus gets there. Now, there can be, this is volatile, and it can be somewhat scary to think about. And if you look historically, there have been things that have happened that you might not want to live through with this. But on the other hand, technological innovation has been incredible with this. And you can look at it as pulling electrical impulses, pulling electricity out of the sky into the ground and grounding it in some way. Could be actually very, very useful.
Okay. All right. So I have a question for the audience. I would love to just check in and see how you all feel hearing this. Is there excitement, or are you feeling concern or fear? Just if you can just be honest and let us know, that would be good. So we know kind of where everybody's at. We do have some questions. Kathy, are you willing to?
Do you want me to stop the share?
Yeah. I see excited. I see dread. Gail's going to pull some oracle cards to find out what the common link of May 16th, middle August, middle September, middle November, and middle March is. That's a great idea. Janice is excited. John says, wait and see. Paula says, helps me tell a friend who is struggling and waiting for change is so ready. That's amazing. Janice says, excitement combined with stress. Yeah. Okay.
Well, look at this. Okay. Think about the years 2012 to 2015. And it was like the ground beneath your feet just shifted, moved, fell apart. And a lot of people had a difficult experience with that. A lot of people had okay, so life isn't going to go back to what it was experience. It was upheaval. It was turmoil. Collectively, it led to what I have been calling a collective nervous breakdown. And now, but it's freed us all up to pursue things. There's kind of an attitude of, if the world doesn't make sense anymore, why do I have to follow other people's rules? Why do I have to do what I was told when I was a little kid? If I follow my own moral compass and my own sense of integrity, it's time to be me, because when else? When else? So there's an element of that. There's an element of, this is the time to take those impulses that were firing up in you so hot and heavy last year of, I got to do this. Well, now the circumstances are opening up to do it. And sometimes, when your hand is holding on to something just a little bit too hard, cosmic 2x4 comes down on your fingers and you go, no. And then afterwards, you're really happy that you let go of whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That potential is great with this.
Okay, so Lisa says, kind of confused. If I have an exciting business meeting, does that mean it will shift?
Next week?
Yeah.
Something could happen. Something could come into physical form. It might not be quite the way you think it's going to be, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so let's see, some questions. Stephanie says, was it Mars and Uranus Kathy followed in relation to the moon? Is the combination of these planets the secret to her technique?
No, it was Uranus and Pluto that I followed. They were having a change demanding aspect from 2012 to 2015. And when I followed them hitting the moon, it was our processing whatever they were doing. And it turned out to always be applicable. Like, okay, depending on what the type of aspect was that the moon was making to one or the other of them, it was pretty much an explanation of how we are adjusting to whatever these guys are doing, blowing things up, plowing up our lives. I don't do that anymore. I don't do dailies anymore. It takes way too much time. But I have found that continuing to see what's going on with them, and now that Saturn has gotten in the game with them in the last year, that's been really, really valuable.
Okay, great. Josephine says, do we need to use a relocation chart in reference to the transits or use our birthplace natal?
You might try both and see where something happens. I pretty much work with birth charts. I have a friend who was born in Britain and lives in the US and pretty much only uses relo charts. So see what works, see where it shows up. And it might be that it shows up first in one chart and then in the other, depending on how much the ascendant changed, the houses.
Okay, Sylvia wants to know, what about rising signs or moons of the fixed signs?
Oh yeah, they're going to get same sort of thing. They will feel this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Kathy, this is a question that I ask all the astrologers on Astrology Hub TV. What do you say to, and it's a little bit of a, we're changing things. What do you say to critics of astrology?
A, it works. B, follow it. C, an evangelical Episcopalian that I knew when I was very young gave me the best argument I have run across, which is, he told me he believed God had so divinely ordered the universe that astrology was simply a way of perceiving the order. Yes. So I've thrown that back in the face of many a person. And then when all else fails, I mention I don't know, an eclipse date from 19 years ago and say, okay, here's what got ripped up in your life. Then here's what got rebooted. And then there's dead silence and they go, oh. So
yeah.
Worst case scenario, I show them how it works in their own lives.
Yeah. Okay. All right. A couple more questions, and then I'm going to ask you what you would like to leave us with. So, okay, can we look at any specific part of the chart to see what exactly might get activated by this aspect?
Well, see where 0 degrees Taurus falls in your chart. So you need to actually see your chart for that. See where the doorway between, well, 2 areas actually. See where the end of Aries and the beginning of Taurus is, and see where the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius is. Mars is going to be at the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius. So that's where there could be the action coming from that area of your life that then causes the, I don't want to say explosion.
You already did.
Radical opening in the other area of your life.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
But it also connects 2 areas of your life. You can see, all right, so this is falling in this house, and I sort of know what this house is about. Again, refer to the lovely resource at Astrology Hub, and you can say, okay, it's in this house. So these are the sorts of things that might be involved. And then this one's falling in this house. These are the sorts of things that might be involved. How could there be a connection? And then watch. This is a way to learn astrology on the ground. It's really fun.
Absolutely. Okay. and an opportunity for all of us to practice the mantra that life is happening for us. Life is happening for us. So just play those over and over in your head. Kathy, is there anything that you would like to leave us with before we close out?
This was on a rubber stamp that I've had for years. It is as it is. I am as I am. And now is my time. Things are shifting this year to open up circumstances that couldn't exist before. We are people that we couldn't be before. It's time to show parts of ourselves that for whatever complicated reasons we could not be before. It's time.
All right. Lots to reflect on, you guys, right? What is that for you? We've been seeing a lot of things come through. So lots of different elements of life that people are thinking that this is going to affect them in. And just keep the comments coming. We look at all of them. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said in the beginning, make sure you take advantage of the retrograde download that we have. And actually, Kathy wrote that for us. So this I forgot to give you credit before. Yes, Kathy wrote that for us. So it's an amazing resource that you have to help navigate the summer with the 6 retrogrades that we're going to have. So highly encourage you to download that. It's completely free and available to you now. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into Astrology Hub TV. Next week and the week after, we are actually not going to be here because of lots and lots of travel that's happening. So we will not be having Astrology Hub TV next week or the week after, but we'll be back the week after that. So we'll see you then. And thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll see you next time.